morning. Hope you are doing well. I am well myself. Okay, so quick question. Now that we've all had a while to start using and being abused by, abusing, and being abused by these different AI tools, can I share with you some things that are bothering me about them? And the first is really simple. It's that we were told that using the tools was supposed to reduce the amount of brain power or bandwidth that we had to expend in order to help us to complete tasks that were boring or repetitive or just draining in order to save the energy for other higher level tasks. And I just find that this isn't the case. I find that using AI is just as draining as any other activity that I would do cognitively. And here's what I mean. I run a publishing company, so it's no surprise that we're going to use AI sometimes to do outlines. We'll take interviews that our authors do with us, we'll create drafts, and then we'll have human writers come in and polish the things that are written, and also editors come in and completely humanize it. And so there's a process to even working with AI output. But you'd think that just having the AI itself write a detailed outline and to use that outline as a backbone for the book would be easy, simple, and relatively cognitively inexpensive. But I find that's not the case. Let's say, for instance, we are taking, for instance, we usually do about 10 hours of interviewing, so we take 10 different interview transcripts, and we feed those into Claude, God forbid GPT now, or another AI that is relevant for this purpose. What we'll often find is that we have to know exactly what's going into Claude or whatever LLM we're using, because oftentimes what we get back is not what we put in. And it could come in the form of Claude. I don't want to keep saying Claude because it could be any one of these guys. The LLM completely omitting important information from the person's story, or not classifying certain information as important, relevant, even if small details, or hallucinating and making things up, which it still tends to do. Less so than maybe even a few years ago, but certainly still makes up details to fill gaps that it believes are there. And so when you're interviewing someone, you now, because of current technology, will think the interview is going to be the transcripts will all going to be caught from, Zoom or from Google Voice, wherever you're recording it. And I'll take those transcripts and I'll feed it into insert LLM here, and it will sort everything out for me. That's the process. But as the human going and filtering through that information, you have to know exactly what it is that is in those interviews, because it's likely that it will omit things or make things up. And this is especially an issue when you're working with a team and you might have had the interview conducted by two different people, or you might have had different people reviewing the files at different times. And if there's not a clear understanding of what actual content is being uploaded to an LLM, you're likely to get content out that you don't want. If the input isn't clear, if you're not clear on what's going in 100%, then you won't be clear on if what's coming out is great. And so we're finding that when we're working with LLMs, we have to be very vigilant with the material that it's outputting, because, well, first of all, for our books, it's really important, but also just for our own sake of making sure that nothing goes out that we are not proud of. We have to know everything. And so there is an extra step of having to go through and really painstakingly cross-reference what was already said with what's going into the GPT or into the LLM, and that takes time. It's a hidden cost. It's an iceberg effect when it comes to the time that you won't think of when you're first starting to use these tools. Similarly, when it comes to using a tool like a Claude or a GPT or a Gemini to do writing for you, which they all have different styles, and that's up to you. When it's doing writing for you, if I gave it an outline or I gave it content that I was feeding it in, and then it returns some sort of draft for me, like if I'm having it help me draft a chapter, because we're putting out professional work, everything that we create has to be fully vetted and fully read. Every single word has to be read, and we're going to want to make real human level improvements to that, and corrections and connections that maybe aren't even there. And we're going to also want to take out anything that's not part of what we want to say. And so while it might take energy for you to write something from your brain without any type of support, material support, and it might seem like it takes less energy for the machine to do that job for you, there's a lot of effort in correcting and editing work with the machine. And the back and forth conversation you have to have with the machine for the machine to get it right is still exhausting. And I'm sure it's like this with a lot of the ways that you're using AI. I mean, we're talking about from a writing perspective. There are people who are using it for coding and engineering and healthcare and all this different stuff. And it can be exhausting just interacting with AI. And so it just made me realize that they sold us this whole idea of it's going to save you time and energy because you don't have to do some of those things anymore. But I'm realizing that, yeah, if I'm using AI to work on a book, if I'm not writing every single word, then that's one type of energy that I'm saving. But you're also giving the machine a lot of energy just by interacting with it. And look, 5 hours at a computer is 5 hours at a computer. So while you might be moving faster on the computer with the AI tools, the fact that you're on the computer is what's draining you the most. So where you can, if you can move your life forward more quickly by using an AI tool, but moving your life forward still means being on the computer, then the net effect isn't actually stopping you from being exhausted from the work you're already doing. It's just replacing that work with different type of work, which is now monitoring AI and doing a lot of different things more quickly. It's not actually solving the problem of I'm sick of being tethered to this computer all the time. And so that's another thing I'd say. It's like we thought it would save us time and energy on the things we didn't want to do, but it just requires us to learn new skills and do different things which are slightly less creative, but just more of like administrative. And then the whole idea that AI was going to give us our time back forgets this very important part about the whole approach, the capitalism's whole approach to business. And look, I'm a capitalist. I love making money. I can't wait to make more. But there's levels to this game, and the whole idea that the system that was going to free us frees up our time to allow us to put more time back into the work system is what we need to come to terms with. Because if, let's say, AI cuts your work load by 50%, with the way that the economy functions, even if you're an entrepreneur working for yourself, there will be a strong pressure for you to take that time that you've saved and replace it with other productive activities, which would be more revenue producing activities, which would be more work. So it's not like because of AI, you used to finish your job at 5 o'clock and now you finish it at 1 p.m. and go home. It's like, no, now that you've gotten those extra 4 hours back, what other work can you be doing with those 4 hours? And can you use some more AI on those 4 hours to move those projects forward even faster? So it's never a situation of now that AI is here, I have to work less. It's how can I cram more work into the same time block faster? And maybe not at as high level of quality, but more volume because of AI. And that, I think, is what we're really in store for. And the solution to that is, and the counter to that is either, yeah, if it eliminates so much work that you're not necessary, then you'll get fired. But if you are still necessary and you're using AI, you better use it everywhere you can, because otherwise you're going to get left behind, and we have to go as fast as possible. And I wrote down in my notebook today, I wrote down 3 things. I wrote, what are we running towards? What are we running away from? And how will we know when we get there? What are we running towards? What are we running away from? And how will we know when we get there? Yeah, it's really just a matter of why do we need to go so fast? What are we looking to gain? In terms of running towards, are we running towards some sort of singularity where we can't wait to be one with the technology and we can't wait to be completely strapped in or completely free of all energy expenditure? What is it that we're running towards? Like, what do we hope AI is going to accomplish for us? And why is it better than now or before? I know that makes me sound old, and I'm sure every generation longs for the generation of their childhood because it represents whatever childhood represented to them. But man, I just can't see what we're racing towards. What are we running away from? That might be easier to answer. I mean, maybe we're running away from fear of our own mortality, for fear of um, our own limited time on this rock. Yeah, we're afraid of what comes next, and so we're trying to preserve ourselves. We're trying to slow aging. We're trying to increase our uh, output through technology, and we're ultimately trying to live forever. I mean, you know, at the top of the food chain, quote unquote, the top of the food chain, the humans who are running these systems are trying to live forever. And the question is, why? And the only thing I can say is you're afraid of death, which is you're afraid of nature. And it's so interesting because human beings often see ourselves as separate from nature, or like we're at struggle with nature. We're battling nature because we want something and nature wants something else. But we are nature. We're just as much nature as the tree growing out of the ground outside. It's just that our roots are energetic. Our roots aren't fixed to one physical place in the ground, but they are everywhere that we walk. Um, we're made up of all the same components that the earth has and stars have, and we're a completely organic system. And when we dissolve, all the molecules that are in us will get reabsorbed back into the earth, and that's why the oxygen that's making its way around the world right now is full of some of the same particles of matter that Jesus Christ would have breathed in, or Martin Luther King, or Gandhi, or the devil. So yeah, um, and then how will we know if we get there? Will there be is there a technological finish line? It's like, is it when the aliens come and zap us up? Is it when we cause some sort of cataclysmic environmental reaction that we know that we've reached it? But like, how will we know when we've reached the peak? And those are important questions to ask. And all of this too, it forces you to think about the big picture. But then for me, it always makes me come back to the small and important things in my everyday life. Because AI can feel really overwhelming because we don't really have any choice in how it's used in our society. We can choose individually how to use it or whether or not to use it. We can't choose necessarily how it affects society as a whole, because the way it stands right now, the people who run these tech companies are essentially oligarchs. They control a massive amount of the wealth and resources, and they're going to make some decisions for us that we wouldn't necessarily want. But despite those choices being made at scale, we can still choose to do the things to protect ourselves. I made a video about this a few weeks ago. I'll put it up at the end of this video. Basically, it's how do we protect ourselves in times of change, fear, transition. And I outlined a few different ways, talking about how to use your power to responsibly disconnect from the world when things get too tough, and then also how to fill yourself up and elevate yourself when the pendulum of life is moving a little bit too fast for your liking. So you can check that video out as well. I'll put it at the end here so you don't forget. And if you like these videos, if you like truth and honesty and just me talking about the things I think will really matter to you outside of just the nitty-gritty of business, which we do talk about as well, make sure you subscribe to this channel. It'll mean a lot. And as of this recording, I still have barely just 100 subscribers. So as you know, we growing. And as my friend Jim Carrey would say, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.